This is Death by Santa Paws, a hilarious feel-good cozy mystery, Island Whodunit, Book 18, written by Tess Marlowe and narrated by Sarah.
Hi, Tess Marlowe here. Before Chapter 1 begins, please take 1 second to look at your screen and hit subscribe. It helps me bring you more free cozy mysteries.
Chapter 1. Reg stopped mid-sip as the coroner's van crawled into Isla Lirio's parking lot. Did someone die today and we somehow missed it? Maybe he's just visiting someone, Alex said, stepping outside and shutting the screen door. With the corpse wagon? Elliot Crane climbed out of the van holding a small paper bag and started walking toward their gate, cheerful as ever. Bombay crawled from under the table and pranced toward his friend. Reg stood up to shake Elliot's hand. "Tell me that's not anything work-related." Elliot laughed. "Relax. Dog treats." He offered the bag to Bombay, who immediately sat, tongue lolling in eager politeness. "My kids made them for him." Alex smiled. "Aw, that's sweet." Reg frowned at the bag. "Define treat." "Peanut butter, oats, apples," Elliot listed. "No formaldehyde." "Good. I have no idea what coroner's kids are normally playing with." Elliot scratched Bombay behind the ears, earning an ecstatic full-body wag. "Actually, I came here to ask for a favor." Alex leaned her elbows on the fence. "What's up?" Elliot hesitated, which is not something the coroner usually did. "Well, my kids finally convinced my wife to get a dog." Reg raised a brow. "Remind me how many you got?" Elliot sighed. 4, for now. The final number is pending. Your wife is a saint if she agreed to add a dog to that circus. It took a whole year of nagging, but she finally gave up. Alex smiled. "How can we help you, Elliot?" "The shelter's hosting that big adoption fair on Saturday, and I was hoping you'll help me choose the right dog for my family, since, you're the parents of the best dog on the island." Bombay wagged his tail as if saying, "Yup, that's me, the best dog." Reg patted Bombay's head. "He's so good because he's a retired K-9 and the only child in this family. I'm not sure that he would be equally good with 4 kids running around." Bombay gave him a wounded look. "See, you get the dog's character. I don't know the first thing about that. And I'm scared they'll end up choosing either a wolfhound or a chihuahua, and I would really like something, in between." Reg gave Elliot a suspicious look. "You're not planning to turn the poor creature into a cadaver dog, are you?" Alex elbowed him, smiling. "We'd love to help." "Thank you." Elliot grinned with visible relief. "I mean, it would be kind of cool to have a K-9 partner, but Mendoza seems to find dead bodies without any extra help." Reg coughed mid-sip. "That she does." He agreed. A distant, frantic jingle preceded the chaos that was Gary. He rounded the corner at a jog, Polly on his shoulder in a tiny red and green Christmas scarf that looked actually hand-knitted. Gary threw a hand in the air. "Good morning, crime fighters." Reg glanced at his watch. "Gary, it's 9 a.m. "Exactly. Peak crime-fighting hour." Polly puffed out his chest and declared in a perfect, cheery jingle bell rhythm. "Ho ho hell no." Alex choked on her coffee so violently Reg had to pat her back. Gary frowned at Polly. "We talked about that." Polly ignored him and bobbed proudly. Elliot blinked. "Your parrot just said—" Reg cut in. "He says all kinds of inappropriate things. Ignore him." Gary placed a hand over his heart. "For your information, we have been invited to the adoption fair to help collect donations and entertain the children." "Reg, is Polly going to pickpocket?" Polly reared back in pure scandal. "Rude!" Gary scowled. "We have a routine, actually. Polly has prepared a medley of traditional Christmas hits." Polly immediately burst into song, loudly and wildly off-key. "Jingle bells, smells like shells." Reg closed his eyes. "Fantastic." Elliot whispered, "And I thought I was the island eccentric, so to speak." Gary continued, oblivious. "There's gonna be a Santa, a silent auction, a bake sale, the adoption booths curated by Dr. Reyna herself, and, wait for it, face painting." He smacked his hands together, delighted. "Shannon agreed to help." Polly switched to an even louder, triumphant cry. Ho ho homicide! Reg lowered his mug. Let's maybe skip that one for once. Alex pinched the bridge of her nose. Please, let's skip it. It's the holiday season after all. Ungrateful humans, Polly muttered darkly and hid behind Gary's head. Bombay rolled his eyes at Polly's antics. Elliot reached out to scratch his chest. See, I want a dog like this. Steady, smart, not the kind that runs through walls when it gets agitated. Gary brightened. Oh, there's a bulldog at the shelter who absolutely will run through walls. Elliot paled. Noted. Don't worry, Elliot, Alex said softly. We'll help you choose the perfect family dog. It'll be fun. Polly shook his feathers. Fun, fun, fun. Reg stared at him. That's what I'm afraid of. Gary glanced at his phone. Nice talking to you, but gotta run. Polly and I need to rehearse our routine. Big debut on Saturday. We'll see you at the fair. Be there or be dead, Polly squawked from his shoulder. Gary spun around. Square! He means square! Be there or be square! Polly corrected himself. SQWAR. Close enough. Gary sighed. They left in a cloud of jingling, cackling, and scattered feathers. Elliot watched them go. I don't know what just happened. That, Alex said, is Gary. I bet you've met him before. That, Reg rolled his eyes, is also Polly. And Saturday, Alex concluded, is apparently going to be eventful. Elliot laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Thanks again. Really, it means a lot. I'll text you the time. We'll be there, Reg promised. Elliot climbed back into the van, waved, and drove off toward the exit. Reg took a long sip of coffee. Well, we're going to a dog adoption fair. Alex rested her head against his shoulder. It's great that Elliot is doing it. Every kid needs a dog. Bombay squeezed between them and barked in agreement. Chapter 2. So how do you actually choose a dog for a family? Alex asked Reg on their walk toward the shelter. To be honest, I don't really know, Reg said, looking unbothered. But Elliot's got 4 kids, so whatever we pick needs to be patient. Like, Saint-level patience. Alex looked at him, confused. What do you mean you don't know? How did you choose Bombay? Reg gave her a long, mischievous look. I didn't. He pointed at Bombay, trotting ahead as if he was the only one who knew the way to the shelter. He chose me. I wasn't even a canine handler until I was 42. Alex blinked. Wait. What? Reg sighed the sigh of a man who had accepted, long ago, that fate came for him in the form of a 100-pound black German shepherd. All right, picture this, he said, gesturing. Joint training day at Lackland Air Force Base. I'm off to the side, minding my business, coordinating the troops. Bombay flicked an ear back as if listening. The K-9 unit is running drills, and there's this problem child. Almost 2-year-old shepherd with the attitude of a biker who's been kicked out of 3 bars already. Bombay. Who else? Bombay huffed proudly. His handler is yelling commands at him at the top of his lungs. Heel, sit, down. The full vocabulary. Dog ignores him as if he's on mute. Then he looks over at me like, oh, you. There you are. Alex's smile widened. Oh, no. Oh, yes. He trots over, plops his butt on my boot, and refuses to move. Handlers yelling, trainers yelling, the drill is stalled, and I'm just standing there thinking, please don't let this be my problem. And? Reg sighed with a smile. He leaned on my leg. Leaned? Yup, as in, give up, human. You're mine now. Bombay wagged once as if confirming the historical accuracy. Next thing I know, the kennel master walks over, rubs his forehead, and says, Colonel O'Malley, congratulations. The dog has selected you. Alex burst out laughing. Selected you? Like a Pokemon? Something like that. They walked a few steps before Alex nudged him. So that's it? He sat on your boot, and you became his handler? Red shook his head. Oh no, it got worse. Worse? The first time I tried to deploy without him, he staged a coup. Alex nearly tripped. A coup? Full rebellion. Reg confirmed. I'm halfway to the airfield when I get a call from the kennel master yelling in 3 languages. Apparently, Bombay jumped the partition, knocked over 2 handlers, and bit through a tactical vest. I didn't know it was possible. Alex gasped. I didn't either, but turns out it is. Civil Disobedience K9 edition. They turned the corner toward the shelter. Bombay trotted ahead proudly like a veteran union leader. Reg continued, dead serious. Kennel Master says, O'Malley, turn your truck around and take your damn dog before he chews through all our equipment. Alex wiped tears from her eyes, laughing. You're telling me he was deployed because he threw a tantrum? People tend to take your tantrums seriously when you've got very sharp teeth. Alex laughed harder. How come you never told me this story? You never asked, Reg shrugged. Besides, I don't really remember how life was like before I got Bombay. Bombay stopped, looked at Reg, and wagged his tail. So you agreed to help Elliot choose a family dog, but you don't have the slightest idea what you're doing? As a matter of fact, I do have an idea, Reg said, pretend offended. We walk around the shelter and see which dog throws itself at the kids, demanding to be taken home. Bombay sneezed as if saying, Great plan, Dad. It's a shelter, Reg. What if there's more than one dog that wants to go home with them? That's a problem Elliot will have to deal with. The moment they stepped onto the shelter grounds, the noise hit them like a wall, barking, laughing, squealing, and at least one toddler shouting that he wanted the striped dog, which for sure identified as a cat most of its life. The adoption fair was in full swing. Shannon was already in the face-painting booth, a line of kids waiting while she painted candy cane swirls, snowflakes, and one pirate scar because the child insisted Christmas was optional. A giant red donation box sat on the counter, overflowing with bills and jingling coins. Gary and Polly were stationed near the entrance doing whatever enticing people to donate meant in Gary's mind. Polly was perched on Gary's shoulder, announcing something unintelligible but enthusiastic every time someone walked by. It seemed to work. People kept dropping money into the box. Dr. Reyna stood with her assistant near the welcome table, both looking tired but genuinely happy as families came through. She wore a festive red bandana and held a clipboard as if it was the last thing keeping the event upright. Alex waved. Dr. Reyna, Gary told us you would be here. Hi, Alex. The vet smiled, doing her best to look less exhausted than she was. When Miguel told me he wanted to organize an adoption event, I volunteered to help. I wanted to personally walk families through the process, talk about responsibilities. She sighed. You'd be surprised how many people take dogs home on an impulse and then drop them on the street when they realize owning a pet is hard work. They're ashamed to bring them back to the shelter, so they just abandon them somewhere quiet. That's awful. It happens more often than it should, Dr. Reyna said. So I'd rather have fewer dogs adopted than see them adopted and re-traumatized. Then her face brightened slightly. Did you two come to pick a friend for Bombay? Alex shook her head with a smile. Actually, we came to help Elliot Crane. He and his kids want to adopt. Oh, they're already here, Dr. Reyna said, gesturing toward the photo booth area. In line to take a picture with Santa, I think. Reg and Alex turned and saw a massive line of families snaking across the yard, winding toward a large sleigh decorated with garland and a glittery sign that read, Photos with Santa. The Santa chair was empty. Reg frowned. Where's Santa? Dr. Reyna glanced toward the staff hallway. He went for a bathroom break, and... She checked her watch. Actually, it's been a while. She looked at Reg. Would you mind checking the men's restroom? I don't know where Miguel is, and I don't want to intrude. Sure, Reg said, already heading toward the building. He pushed open the door to the men's restroom, stepped inside, and stopped short. Then his voice echoed across the yard. Alex, call Angela. We got a dead Santa Claus. Chapter 3. Alex and Dr. Reyna hurried across the shelter entrance, weaving through confused families. A couple of kids were already tugging on their parents' arms, asking where Santa went. Bombay stuck close to Reg's leg as Alex and the vet reached the bathroom door. Reg stood there, blocking the view. They leaned just enough to look past him. The Santa Claus lay sprawled on the tiles in nothing but his fake beard, underwear, and socks. His costume was nowhere in sight. Dr. Reyna slapped a hand over her mouth. Why is he naked? Reg didn't blink. How would I know? Alex pulled back, steadying her breath. Who hired him? Miguel did, Dr. Reyna said, horrified. He handled all the vendors. Can you please go find him? Sure, be right back. She hurried off, nearly colliding with two teenagers carrying trays of gingerbread cookies. Alex stepped back, away from the door, and took out her phone. What now? Mendoza barked without saying hello. We've got a body, Angela, Alex said. Santa, in the men's bathroom at the adoption fair. I do not have time for a homicide right now. Tell me it was a heart attack. Then, without waiting for an answer, she sighed, Be there in 5. Alex hung up and walked toward Elliot, who was trying to keep his 2 older kids from fighting over a candied apple. Elliot, hi, she said quietly. We've got a situation in the men's bathroom. Mendoza's on the way. Is it what I'm thinking about? I won't be bothering you otherwise on your family outing. Something is very wrong with this island, Elliot sighed and turned to his wife. You need to take the kids home. I have to work. The sentence detonated like a small grenade. What? The 6-year-old shrieked. We haven't picked our dog yet. You promised, the 4-year-old wailed. I'm not leaving, the 10-year-old declared, stomping her foot loud enough to startle a nearby poodle. This is unacceptable, the eldest announced. Elliot's wife tried to soothe them, but it was too late. The meltdown had begun. I want my dog. Where's Santa? My legs hurt. I want a puppy. This is the worst day ever. I'm hot. I'm hungry. Why is Santa in the bathroom for so long? Other kids in line picked up the chorus instinctively, like some kind of feral sugar-high choir. The entire line dissolved into shrieks and stomping. Shannon abandoned her face-painting booth the moment she heard the rising commotion. Sweethearts, she announced brightly. Who wants a candy cane? Half the kids froze mid-scream. The 6-year-old sniffed. What color? Shannon produced a handful of multicolored candy canes from the pocket of her overalls. Any color you want. She handed a few out while talking in a soothing tone, crouching to their level. We're going to take a little break outside, okay? Some fresh air, some shade. You can come back later. The dogs aren't going anywhere. The kids hesitated, until Polly opened his beak and screamed, No dogs for you! Chaos reignited instantly. Shannon glared at Gary, who had just arrived breathless behind Polly. Why would he say that? Gary held up both hands defensively. He's improvising. Stop improvising, Shannon hissed. Polly tilted his head. Panic! No, Gary corrected sternly. We are not panicking today. He turned to the kids with a forced smile. Who wants to play a game? A few small heads perked up. Gary pointed dramatically toward the exit. All aboard the Christmas choo-choo train. Polly immediately let out a loud, choo-choo, in perfect imitation of a locomotive. The kids gasped, delighted. Gary clapped his hands. Okay, line up. You're the train cars. Hold on to each other's shoulders like this. Yes, good. And we're going to choo-choo out the door so the adults can do their important adult business. The 6-year-old wiped her tears. Can I be the engine? Yes, Gary said. You are the bravest engine I've ever seen. Another child pointed at Polly. Can he be the caboose? Polly puffed his chest and declared proudly, Caboose! The kids formed a wobbly, giggling chain. Gary led them forward, making exaggerated choo-choo noises. Polly brought up the rear, flapping wildly, shouting choo-choo and happy holidays in between random sound effects. Shannon walked alongside the line, handing out pencils and markers to those still sniffling. You can draw your favorite dog at home, okay? Nice and calm. The parents followed, grateful and exhausted. One by one, they exited the shelter grounds, the improvised train snaking its way out. Elliot's wife mouthed, "Thank you," to Alex before jogging after her retreating children. In less than 2 minutes, the adoption fair transformed from a riot of noise into a stunned, heavy quiet. Reg stood near the entrance, arms crossed, watching the train disappear around the corner. Bombay flopped on the ground, tired from the emotional whiplash. Alex walked back to him and exhaled. Well, that escalated quickly. When Mendoza arrived, Gary was at the far end of the walkway, leading a line of children out of the shelter in a wobbly choo-choo formation. His phone was blasting some chaotic children's Christmas remix. Polly marched behind them all, flapping dramatically and yelling, "Choo-choo! Happy holidays! Choo-choo!" Mendoza stared, stunned. Why the hell is Gary commandeering a choo-choo train out of the shelter? It was the only way to calm the kids down, Alex said. Mendoza watched Gary lead the final curve of the train around the corner. I leave you people alone for one morning. Where's Lucien? Reg asked. Up to his eyeballs in suspect lists. Mendoza groaned. We're blessed with a string of burglaries at every Christmas-adjacent event on the island. She waved a hand in frustration. Crowds everywhere, no real witnesses, descriptions like, he looked festive, and Lucien decided the only logical solution was to build an algorithm. Reg blinked. An algorithm? Mendoza pinched the bridge of her nose. He's cross-matching attendees, vendors, volunteers, and past petty thieves to see if anyone appears in multiple places. He's been staring at it for so long he's losing depth perception. Before Alex could ask more, Elliot jogged over, already pulling gloves onto his hands. I'm ready, Elliot told Mendoza, his professional tone fully in place. Let's see the body. Mendoza nodded, and they headed toward the men's bathroom. Inside, Elliot crouched next to the sprawled Santa. He's still warm, Elliot said quietly. TOD 30 minutes ago. Mendoza folded her arms. Can you tell anything about the cause? Not visible wounds. Elliot pulled off his gloves. I need to examine him properly. Mendoza nodded. All right, do your thing. As Elliot was zipping up the body bag, Miguel hurried over from the main office area, out of breath, and looking like a man who wished he'd stayed home today. Detective Mendoza, I'm Miguel Esparza, the shelter manager. Do we have an ID on the victim? Mendoza asked. Miguel froze. No, I hired him through a company, a Santa service. Mendoza blinked at him, slowly, like she was giving him time to improve his answer. Miguel wilted. I mean, I should have his name in the paperwork somewhere, in my office. If you come with me, I can find it. Mendoza gave a sharp jerk of her head. Lead the way. Miguel nodded frantically and started toward the administrative building. As they walked, he automatically reached for the giant red donation box sitting by the door. I should lock this up, he said. Better safe than... He paused mid-sentence. His face scrunched as he shook the box. It shouldn't feel this light. He set the box down carefully on the table and flipped the lid open. Oh no, he whispered. The box was full, completely, undeniably full, of candy wrappers, bright, shiny foil, empty peppermint pouches, chocolate Santa husks, not a single bill. Fantastic, Mendoza said flatly. A dead Santa and a robbery. Merry Christmas to me. Miguel stared in shock. But this morning it was halfway full. We had people donating the moment the fair opened. Alex touched the edge of the box. Someone must have swapped it out during the crowd chaos. Reg nodded. Whoever did it planned ahead. This wasn't an impulse theft. Mendoza sighed so deeply it could have powered the whole island. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. She pointed a finger at Miguel. Office. Now. I need every name connected to that Santa service. Miguel stumbled toward the building, still dazed. This just became a two-crime scene, Mendoza muttered. And I haven't even had lunch. Bombay nudged her hand with his huge black head, as if to say, I share your lunch-adjacent emotions. Reg rubbed the back of his neck. Looks like whoever robbed those other holiday events just escalated to murder. Mendoza shot him a look. Don't even start. Chapter 4. Miguel's office looked less like an office and more like a storage closet. Pet food bags towered along one wall. Boxes of chew toys were stacked at odd angles, half open and spilling neon rubber bones. A small brown puppy slept smack in the center of Miguel's rolling chair. belly up, snoring. Miguel waved at the room. Sorry, just give me a second. He stepped over a dismantled cat tree and nearly tripped on a squeaky carrot. Mendoza stared at him, unimpressed. This is your office? It's busy season. Miguel shot her a nervous smile before rummaging through a leaning tower of binders. Papers slid everywhere. A stack of vaccination forms avalanched off the file cabinet. Somewhere in the mess, the puppy let out a tiny grunt but didn't wake up. I know I put the Santa paperwork somewhere safe, Miguel muttered. Safe appeared to mean buried beneath 50 pounds of mystery documents. Mendoza crossed her arms. Miguel, the faster you find that contract, the faster I stop imagining creative ways to revoke your shelter's license. I'm looking, he squeaked, opening a drawer that immediately jammed halfway. Shannon peeked in from the half-open door. Miguel, do you want help? No, I can find it, he insisted, now elbow-deep in a tote labeled snacks. Caution, Jasper's stash. Finally, Miguel yelped, Aha! And pulled out a crumpled folder with triumph. He straightened up, pushed his glasses up his nose, and handed it to Mendoza. This is it, he said, the contract for Santa services. Mendoza took it, giving the folder a suspicious look. You keep official contracts next to dog treats? Miguel shrugged weakly. We don't have enough storage space. The puppy snored louder. Mendoza flipped open the contract, scanning. Then she looked up sharply. Miguel, this is a contract between the shelter and some Carousel LLC. Do you actually know the man's name? Miguel froze. Shannon winced sympathetically. Miguel swallowed. I don't. The guy in costume arrived on time. I asked him if he was from the Santa Company, and he said yes. Well, I think he said yes. Or maybe I asked and he nodded? Or maybe I assumed, because he was wearing the costume, so Mendoza's eyelid twitched. Miguel! He blurted, I'm sorry. He showed up in the outfit. He said he was there for the photo booth. I showed him where the sleigh was, pointed at the line, and then I had to go help unload cat litter. Shannon nodded. That sounds about right. So, Mendoza said slowly, crossing her arms, to be clear, you cannot confirm this man worked for the company you hired. Miguel looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. I guess not. Mendoza shut the contract and pulled out her phone. Perfect. Wonderful. Just what I needed today. She dialed. Lucian answered with the tone of a man who had not only lost the will to live, but also lost the fight with his own creation. Lucienne, Mendoza said sharply, I need you to look up Carousel LLC. Hold on, he mumbled. The algorithm window won't close. Mendoza groaned. Lucienne, focus. Check on another computer. Right, another computer. Good call, boss. Give me 5 minutes. She heard frantic typing. And I need unis to tape off the shelter, Mendoza added. Crowd control, entry restriction, the works. On it, Lucian said desperately, then yelled at the top of his lungs. Yo, Tito, get your guys and head to the animal shelter. Boss needs a tape off. Mendoza hung up. Miguel stood there sweating. Should I find more paperwork? Yes, Mendoza said. Every volunteer name, every vendor, every dog walker, every Santa-related document you have, and do not leave the premises. Miguel nodded so hard his glasses slid down his nose. Yes, absolutely. Staying right here. He dove into another stack of binders as Mendoza stepped out into the hallway. Elliot appeared a moment later, pushing a covered stretcher toward the exit. Detective, Elliot said, I'm heading out. I need photos of the Vic as soon as you can get them. We need to make an ID. Elliot nodded. I'll text you the shots and run his prints once I'm at the office. Good. Mendoza stepped aside so he could pass. As Elliot pulled away, the empty Santa booth looked ghostly in the late morning light. Chapter 5. Lucienne called before Mendoza even made it back to her cruiser. She answered without preamble. What? I got access. Mendoza blinked. Access to what? The Carousel LLC, Lucian said, the one that supposedly provides all these event Santas, and elves, and mascots. And why are there so many mascots in December? Who wants a dancing pineapple at Christmas? Lucian. Right, sorry. Anyway, the company is actually a children's cafe in the town square mall. Papers rustled. Owner's name is Maribel Oquendo. Then that's where I'm headed. Great, Lucienne said, and she could hear the bleak triumph. I'll keep digging, if the algorithm doesn't devour me. He hung up before she could respond. Alex approached just in time to hear the tail end. Mall trip? Mendoza groaned. Yes. We'll come with you, Alex said. Mendoza looked horrified. No, you won't. We need to buy gifts anyway, Alex said, ticking off on her fingers. Shannon, Gary, Ms. Belvedere, Lucian. We're getting Gary a gift? Reg asked, surprised. Alex ignored him. Plus, Gary's Secret Santa party is next week, and we still haven't picked anything. Bombay wuffed and rolled his eyes. Mendoza stared at them like she was witnessing a personal betrayal. Can you not make the crowds even bigger? Reg shrugged. 2 of us won't change anything. 2 of you, Mendoza corrected sharply, plus this one. She pointed at Bombay. Who attracts more attention than a movie star? Bombay wagged, proud. Besides, you might need backup. Mendoza blinked slowly. Backup? In a children's cafe? Children are very dangerous. You never know. Reg deadpanned. Mendoza let out a noise that sounded like a small internal explosion. If I say no, you'll follow me anyway, won't you? Alex smiled. You know us. Fine, Mendoza muttered. Get your car. I'm not driving you back. The road to the town square mall was clogged with holiday traffic. Cars crawled forward, brake lights pulsing like malfunctioning Christmas lights. Decorative banners hung from lampposts fluttering in the warm breeze. Maybe everyone else is going to the mall too, Alex said. Reg raised a brow. I'm sure that's comforting for Mendoza. A massive, inflatable Santa wobbled outside a tire shop. Bombay stared at it as if assessing a threat. Mendoza's SUV stayed 2 cars ahead, rigid in the lane like she was trying to bulldoze through the traffic with sheer will. Maybe she should use the siren, Alex said. Reg snorted. You know how much she hates attention. By the time they turned into the mall parking lot, the place was already overflowing. Cars packed in chaotic rows, horns blaring, families unloading strollers the size of moon rovers. Mendoza stepped out of her cruiser and glared toward the sliding doors. All right, children's cafe first, then you can do your shopping, quietly. Reg saluted her with 2 fingers. Copy that, boss. Mendoza rolled her eyes, muttered something unintelligible in Spanish, and headed toward the entrance. Inside the town square mall, Christmas chaos swallowed them whole. Holiday music blasted from ceiling speakers, something aggressively cheerful involving sleigh bells, a children's choir, and what sounded like a cowbell solo. Crowds swirled around pop-up kiosks selling ornaments, scented candles, last-minute stocking stuffers, and a suspicious number of peppermint bath bombs. A troupe of teenagers dressed as elves rehearsed a dance for their next TikTok. Ho-ho homicide detective is on a mission, Reg said, watching Mendoza march ahead, parting the foot traffic like a furious icebreaker cutting through a sea of floppy sun hats and ugly Santa sweaters. They passed a Christmas choir stationed in front of a bookstore, belting out Joy to the World with the volume and intensity of a rock concert. Reg leaned toward Alex. We should have brought earplugs. Mendoza snapped. If either of you complain, I'm writing you both up for... She squinted at a passing reindeer mascot who winked at her. Whatever that was. Alex bit her cheek to keep from laughing. The children's cafe sat at the far end of the mall, tucked into an awkward corner between a discount shoe outlet and a nail salon. Half its pastel sign had burned out, leaving the faded letters reading, CFA Car SL. The windows were decorated with cartoon animals wearing Santa hats, cheerful yet peeling around the edges. Mendoza pushed open the door. All 3 stopped. There were no children, not a single one. Instead, the cafe was filled with adults in mismatched costumes, like someone had hit shuffle on a costume rental catalog. A mermaid sat at the nearest table sipping coffee through a straw, tail half bent in an uncomfortable position. A princess with a crooked tiara leaned over a bowl of soup. A guy in a pirate outfit scrolled on his phone. A duck, who may or may not have been part of the original business plan, sat slumped in the back, headpiece off, revealing a sweaty man underneath who looked done with life. Every costumed person turned to stare at them the moment the door chimed. Alex blinked. This is different. Bombay whined quietly and hid behind Reg. Reg gave him a reassuring pat. I know, buddy. I'm confused too. Mendoza stepped forward, raising her voice. Maribel Okendo? There was a rustle from behind the counter, and an elderly lady with cotton candy pink hair shuffled out. Yes, she said. That's me. Mendoza showed her badge. Detective Mendoza, San Malvino Police. We need to ask a few questions about a Santa you were contracted to provide for the animal shelter. The old woman nodded, completely unsurprised. Did he do something wrong? Mendoza raised a brow. Why are you asking? With all those temps, you never know. Red shot Alex a quick look. Mendoza continued. I need to see your paperwork. Maribel nodded and reached behind the counter for a little binder decorated with dinosaur stickers. She passed it over. As Mendoza skimmed it, she asked, Why are you operating a children's cafe with no children? Maribel sighed, leaning on the counter. I opened this place 12 years ago. The idea was parents could bring their kids to meet fairy tale characters while they had coffee. But turns out not many people want a princess trying to braid their child's hair while they're drinking a latte. Reg murmured, Can't imagine why. Maribel continued, So to keep the business open, I started renting out characters. Birthdays, school events, holiday parties. Christmas season is the biggest. Everyone wants a Santa or an elf. Do you have permanent staff? Mendoza asked. Oh, no, Maribel said with a chuckle. Just freelancers. Anyone who wants to work a shift shows up here, and I give them the next available job. First come, first served. Mendoza stared at her. So you don't keep a list of regular employees? Nope. Alex exhaled softly. That complicates things. And what about them? Mendoza pointed behind her. Break time. Most of them work at shops in the mall. Can I speak with them? Maribel shrugged. Sure, they're right. They weren't. Every costumed person had vanished. Every chair was still warm, coffee cups half full, one tiara left on a table. Maribel blinked in surprise. Huh, they must have gone back to their shifts. Mendoza looked around the empty tables, unimpressed. Yeah, I'm sure that's why. Alex whispered, That was fast. Reg nodded. Too fast. Mendoza straightened and faced Maribel again. I need a list of every freelancer who picked up jobs this December, every Santa, every elf, every mascot. I don't care if they only worked one event. Maribel nodded, already rifling through her binder. I'll print you everything I have. Good, Mendoza said. We need to know who your Santas are and who they're not. Reg stood by the door with Bombay, scanning the mall through the glass. Children's cafe, huh? Alex shook her head. Only on this island. Chapter 6. The San Malvino police station looked more chaotic than ever. Someone had draped mismatched tinsels around the front desk. A small ceramic snowman balanced on top of the printer, missing its hat. A string of blinking lights flashed unevenly above the bulletin board, half the bulbs dead. Holiday spirit here felt more like holiday resignation. Reg, Alex, and Mendoza stepped through the lobby. Bombay confidently trotted to the broom closet turned office, sensing the emotional turbulence coming from behind the closed door. That turbulence had a name. Lucian. He sat hunched over the keyboard, wild-eyed, hair sticking up in different directions, dark circles under his eyes. A half-eaten cookie balanced on top of a stack of folders. 2 empty coffee cups sat beside him like war casualties. He didn't look up. I swear to God, he muttered, typing furiously. I created a monster. Mendoza thumped the stack of contracts onto his desk. Lucien jumped so hard his chair rolled back into the mops behind him. "I need these checked out," Mendoza said. "ASAP." Lucien stared at the pile like it was a live grenade. What is this?" "The freelancer contracts from the Children's Cafe," Mendoza said. "These are contracts?" Lucien said, poking a page. "This is a shopping receipt with a signature." "And yet," Mendoza said, "it's the best we have." Lucien inhaled deeply through his nose like he was preparing for battle. He selected the top sheet and started typing the name into the database. "No match," he muttered. He tried the next one. "No match, next, no match, next, no match." He stopped, looked at Mendoza, blinked. "These people don't exist." Mendoza crossed her arms. "Try again." Lucien entered the names again, this time with variations, middle initials, nicknames, shortened versions. Nothing. "They're not on any local registry," Lucien said, panic creeping into his voice. "They're not in the tourist arrival logs either. They don't exist." Reg leaned on the door frame. "Well, that's comforting." Lucien ran a hand through his hair. "Who are these people? Ghosts in Santa suits? That's the only explanation. Ghosts." "They're not ghosts," Mendoza snapped. "They're thieves, or accomplices, or idiots with fake IDs, possibly a combination." Lucien dropped his forehead onto the desk with a thunk. "Boss, these names are useless. These aren't real contracts. They're scribbles on paper." Bombay sniffed the stack, unimpressed. Alex stepped closer. "We need something better. Photos, maybe?" Lucien lifted his head. "You want me to go collect photos from every holiday event in town? That's—" He counted on his fingers. "At least 30 locations. I haven't slept. I haven't blinked in an hour. Reg interrupted. "We don't need to go all over town." Mendoza looked at him. "We don't." "No." Reg pulled out his phone. "We need Shannon." Mendoza's shoulders sagged. "Why? I don't have time for art therapy right now." "Because," Reg said, "she's a social media wizard, remember? I bet there's at least 10 photos posted from each of those events." "Actually, that's a pretty solid idea." Mendoza brightened first time in that day. 10 minutes later, Shannon burst into the broom closet office. She still had smudges of face paint on one elbow and a smear of glitter on her cheek. "Okay," she said, plopping onto the floor because there was no space for an actual chair. "Who are we stalking?" Lucien gestured dramatically at the stack of contracts. "Fake people, fake Santas, fake elves, fake everything, and I don't have visuals." Shannon cracked her knuckles. "Let's hunt." She opened TikTok first, fingers flying. Hashtag San Malvino Christmas. Hashtag Santa Malvino. Hashtag Merry Malvino. Photos, clips, shaky videos from moms filming toddlers hugging Santas appeared instantly. Then she switched to Instagram. Scroll, tap, scroll, screenshot, geotags, event tags, mall tags, boardwalk tags, then Facebook, then community groups, then microblogs, then random people who had posted, "Just saw a Santa near the pier." Shannon was a machine. Bombay sat beside her in fascinated awe as she swiped through data at dangerous speeds. "Okay," she said after 20 minutes. "I have Santas. Like, all of them. December's entire Santa population." She airdropped everything to Lucien. Lucien's desktop immediately covered itself in a horrifying collage of Santas at various angles. Reg recoiled. "That's disturbing." Lucien rolled his sleeves. "Okay, beard removal magic time." He pulled up his photo editing software, something he'd coded himself that worked frighteningly well, and began digitally removing Santa beards, hats, sunglasses, wigs, and elf caps. The results were uncanny, but workable. Once he had clean face shots, Lucien began feeding them one by one into the police database, then the ferry logs, then the old arrest records. Reg leaned forward. "Anything?" "Shh, I'm working," Lucien hissed. Mendoza paced behind them, swearing under her breath. Alex leaned against the wall. Shannon continued finding more photos, sending them in batches that made Lucien flinch each time his computer chimed. The printer hummed ominously. Bombay poked it. Lucien clicked through match result after match result. No matches. No, I did. Who are these people? 10 minutes passed. 20. 30. The mood tightened. Then Lucien froze. What? Mendoza said. What did you find? Lucien didn't answer. Slowly he leaned closer to his screen, eyes widening, his face drained of color. Mendoza stepped closer. Lucien. He swallowed hard. Boss, he said quietly, we got a big problem. Chapter 7. What did you find? Mendoza leaned over Lucien's shoulder and stared at the screen. Lucien swallowed. All of them. Shannon leaned in too. All of the what? Lucien tapped the monitor. A grid of faces filled the screen. Beardless Santas, bald elves, bits of wigs and hats removed with his chaotic software magic. Every Santa and every elf from the events this month, Lucien said. They're all recently released from San Malvino Correctional. Every single one of them. Mendoza's eyebrows shot up. Lucien continued, almost whispering, all did time for theft, burglary, or robbery, short sentences, released within the last 2 to 10 days, and they all got hired at events right after getting out. Shannon blinked. Wait, so every mall Santa this year was a criminal? Lucien held up a finger. Correction, a very recently released criminal. Reg crossed his arms. That explains their retreat from the cafe. Alex frowned. So someone is handing ex-cons new identities and pointing them straight to Maribel's cafe. Mendoza paced a tight, sharp line inside the tiny office. This is an inside job, she snapped. Someone at the prison is feeding these guys information, fake IDs, job availability, probably telling them which events are easy to rob. All events are easy to rob in this chaos. There were probably 50 people at the shelter, including us, Reg said, exasperated, and we still got robbery and a murder. And the contract names? Shannon asked. Lucien slapped one of the papers. All fake, completely fabricated. Great, Reg muttered. Love that for the holidays. Mendoza stopped pacing. I'm going to the prison. The warden is going to explain to me in every tiny detail how the hell half his release roster is moonlighting as Santa. Shannon whispered to Alex, I want to witness that conversation. Mendoza glared at her. You're not coming. Shannon held up both hands. Wasn't even volunteering. Mendoza grabbed her jacket and started toward the door. Her phone rang. She snatched it up and put it on speaker. Mendoza. Elliot's voice came through, tinged with urgency. Detective, I finished the initial exam. I sent the victim's photo to Lucien. Lucien's computer pinged immediately. What about cause of death? Mendoza asked. Elliot sighed. Electrical discharge. Reg blinked. A taser? Exactly, Elliot said. The regular self-defense kind. Normally you'd just get stunned. Temporary incapacitation, maybe a fall. Then why did he die? Mendoza asked. Elliot hesitated. He had a pacemaker. Alex's face fell. Oh no. Elliot continued. The electric discharge shorted the device. Instant cardiac arrest, likely not intentional. Whoever shocked him probably didn't know. So he was collateral damage, Reg said quietly. Someone needed the Santa suit. Elliot didn't argue. There are taser marks on his back, so most probably he was caught off guard. I'll keep you posted if I find anything else. He hung up. Mendoza turned back to Lucien. Run the victim's photo through the database. Let's see if he's connected to the prison, too. Lucien clicked, uploaded, waited. Seconds later, his face softened, then tightened again. No criminal record, he said quietly. No priors, no mugshot, not an ex-con, not connected. He glanced at the screen. Local guy, Thomas Alves, 48, maintenance worker at the pier, married, 2 teenage daughters, pacemaker surgery 6 months ago. Silence filled the tiny room. Alex sighed. He probably picked up an odd holiday gig. To make extra gift money, Shannon whispered. Mendoza inhaled slowly through her nose. Lucian, I can't put off talking to the warden, she said, and I can't dump this on the uniforms. He looked up. You have to notify the family, in person. Lucian froze. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I hate that part of the job. Bombay nudged his elbow gently. Alex stepped closer. Do you want backup? Yeah, he said softly. It would really help. I have no idea how to deliver that kind of news to a family, especially not before Christmas. Mendoza looked at him with intent. I don't know if they ever taught you this in the academy, but no vague sentences. No, we lost him, or passed, or departed, or we found your husband. Be direct. And change into uniform before you go. The family deserves some respect. Copy that, Lucian said grimly, and shuffled off to the locker room. I'll make sure he does everything properly, Alex said. Thanks, Mendoza said. I appreciate you volunteering. I hate throwing Lucian into the deep end, but he has to learn this side of policing if he wants to be a good cop. Lucian shuffled out of the locker room in full parade uniform. This thing is itchy. How do I look? Babe, you're so handsome, Shannon said, suddenly blushing. Mendoza gave Shannon a stern look. We do not have time for that, Shannon. She grabbed the doorknob. Let's move. We have a warden to interrogate, a family to visit, and a fake Santa crime ring to dismantle before Christmas Eve. She left first. Lucian watched her go, then looked at Alex and Shannon. Okay, he whispered, straightening his jacket. Let's do this. Chapter 8. The San Malvino Correctional Facility sat a mile inland, looking like someone had plopped a gray Lego fortress into the middle of a mango grove. Holiday attempts had been made, one sagging wreath over the main gate, a string of lights wrapped twice around a palm tree and then abandoned, and a sad, inflatable snowman lying deflated on the parking lot. I need to see the warden. Right now, Mendoza said, almost shoving her badge into the guard's face. He took one look at her expression and buzzed her through without checking any identification. Right this way, ma'am. The warden's surprisingly small office was halfway down the left wing. She knocked once and shoved the door open. Warden Ricardo Patino looked up from behind a mountain of paperwork. How can I help you? Detective Angela Mendoza. I don't believe we've met. We haven't, Detective, but I heard a lot of good things about you. What can I do for you? We've got a very big problem, Warden Patino, Mendoza said, stepping dangerously close to his desk, and if your offer to do something for me was sincere, I'd suggest you start doing your job. The warden raised his eyebrows and smirked. I've heard of your bluntness, Detective, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. What is the problem? Mendoza pulled up a chair, dropped into it, and plopped a fat folder on the warden's desk. Warden Patino took it and started slowly turning the pages. Recognize any of those people? These are our recent releases, if I'm not mistaken. The warden said, a little confused. You're not. Also, all of these gentlemen are wanted for a string of thefts and one case of murder during Christmas events. The warden looked even more confused than before. Can you elaborate? All of these men came to Maribel Oquendo's cafe looking for a temp job, armed with a fake ID less than 24 hours after their release. They were hired as Santa impersonators for various Christmas events that later reported theft of large sums. In one case, a civilian got tased to death. She looked him dead in the eye. Was that clear enough? The warden looked at her, stunned. You're implying I have staff feeding convicts fake identities and job intel? It's less of an implication, Warden, more of a fact. He sighed and shook his head. Detective, my guards are stretched to breaking, he said. No one wants government shifts. No one wants the pay. I have 10 vacancies open that I can't fill since last year. Everyone is doing overtime. Half of them are falling asleep on their feet. I'm not accusing your entire team, Mendoza said, but someone is dirty. The warden nodded grimly. I can look past many things given the situation, but I don't tolerate dirty. If one of my staff is doing this, I want them nailed to the wall. Good, Mendoza said. We're finally on the same page. The warden stood and started pacing behind his desk. All right, You can interrogate them, he said. All of them. But... He hesitated. But what? Mendoza asked. He sighed. But most of my guards have been here 10 years or more. They're loyal to each other. They're stubborn. They won't be easy to crack. They won't crack for an interrogation, Mendoza said, but maybe they'll share with someone they trust or don't see as a threat to their enterprise? The warden thought about that, then he brightened slightly. Can you send an undercover as a new guard? Mendoza didn't even blink. No. He deflated. Why not? For one, it'll take forever for a new guard to build trust with your old-timers, she said. They'll smell rookie energy a mile away. The warden rubbed his temple. You're right. And second, Mendoza added, this whole Santa operation might vanish after Christmas. We don't have much time. He slumped back into his chair, staring at the wall for a while. Then, slowly, he sat up straighter. Wait. Mendoza raised an eyebrow. There is one option, he said. She crossed her arms. I'm listening. The warden took a deep breath. You know how the mainland ships us low-level convicts before release? Mendoza blinked. First time I'm hearing about it. He nodded. The mainland doesn't want to deal with individual release paperwork, so they send inmates whose last known address is San Malvino here for their last week. We finalize their documents and let them out. I didn't know that, Mendoza admitted. Not many do, he said. But here's the important part. New transfers go through both intake and release in a week, sometimes less if we're overcrowded. Gotta thank you for that, by the way. He looked at Mendoza with a hint of mischief. So we have new inmates talking to the intake guard, then the admin officer doing release prep, and then the person handling re-entry orientation, all the places someone dirty would operate. Mendoza's eyes sharpened. And if someone gets placed on that boat, the warden continued, they'll see exactly who is giving out intel and fake IDs. They'll see the leak up close. Mendoza stared at him for a moment. Then slowly she smiled. Warden Patino, she said, standing. That's a great idea. The warden nodded cautiously. So you have someone who can pass as a convict? Oh, Mendoza said, pulling her phone from her pocket. I absolutely do. She took her phone out. The warden's eyebrows lifted. You're going to call them right now? Mendoza smirked. Why wait? She dialed, and when a man's voice said, hello, on the other side, she smiled even wider. Reginald, she said sweetly, I got a job for you. Chapter 9. Mendoza stopped at the gate of Alex and Reggie's garden and stared. What? She said flatly. Is happening here? Reg didn't miss a beat. Preparing my backstory. Shannon spun around, eyes shining like a kid caught doing something mildly illegal but fully justified. Mendoza, she said, waving her tablet. You're just in time. I'm choosing temporary tattoo designs for Reggie's disguise. Look at this one. It says no Reggerts. No, Reg said without looking. Carlos tapped the duffel bag. And I brought props. Every crook that is moved from the mainland to the Legoland is given this terrible duffel for personal stuff. Mendoza blinked. Legoland? Carlos nodded solemnly. That's what they call the prison, because it looks like it's made out of a very cheap monochrome Lego set. Shannon snorted. I thought it was called that because the inmates are forced to build something. That too, Carlos said. Mendoza pinched the bridge of her nose. Why are you all like this? Reg held up a hand. Because if I'm going undercover as a convict, I need a believable story. And who better to coach me than someone who knows the, cultural context? Carlos puffed up with pride. Most of our fishermen have done at least a night or two on the inside, some for public intoxication, some for accidentally taking the wrong motorboat, some for real crimes, but we don't talk about those. Shannon flipped her tablet around. I also designed a tattoo of a dolphin smoking a cigar. It's stupid, but in a criminally whimsical way. Reg sighed at the sky like someone pleading for divine intervention. I'm trusting your design choices way too much. Mendoza crossed her arms. Aren't you the one who refused to dress up for Halloween? Reg shrugged. This is different. This has purpose. You're enjoying this a bit too much. Not too much. Maybe a little. Reg smiled. Carlos leaned against the railing. Anyway, easiest backstory is, you're a sailor caught running contraband, booze or tobacco usually. Everyone at Legoland knows that story. It's believable. Mendoza looked between them and shook her head. Fine, she said. Keep working. I'll pretend I don't see any of this. Shannon saluted her with the tablet. Yes, Detective Mom. Mendoza gave her a look. Don't call me that ever again. Before Shannon could get into more trouble, Lucien and Alex walked through the gate. One look at Lucien made everyone straighten. He wasn't crying, but he looked like he could. His eyes were red-rimmed, shoulders slouched, hands shoved into his pockets. Even Bombay stood up and whimpered. Mendoza's voice softened. How did it go? Lucien swallowed. His voice cracked on the first word. Bad. Everyone stayed quiet. Lucien took a breath and tried again. It's all so devastating. Thomas worked at the docks until his pacemaker surgery, Alex said, filling 2 glasses with iced tea. After that, he couldn't do heavy lifting anymore, so he started looking for simple seasonal work. He thought being Santa was something he could manage. Lucien's eyes glassed over again. He just wanted to support his wife and daughters. They have no extended family, no savings. They were trying so hard. He pressed the heel of his palm to his forehead. They still offered us coffee. While crying, He broke off, swallowing hard. This kind of days make me think about quitting the force. We solve crimes and deliver bad news after someone got hurt. Everyone was unusually quiet. Then Carlos put his glass down. If it's all right, he said carefully, I'd like to help the family. Mendoza blinked. You want to offer the wife a job at Mamacita's? Carlos shook his head. That too, if she wants it, but I meant financial help. He set down his drink and crossed his arms with unusual seriousness. I put most of my pastry Grand Prix prize in the bank. I don't really use it. And no family should struggle on Christmas, so consider it a donation. From Mamacita's fund. Shannon's mouth fell open. Alex wiped away a tear. Mendoza stared at him for a long moment. Carlos, that's really good of you. He waved a hand. Mamacita has a big heart. Just don't tell anyone. Lucien breathed out shakily. Thank you. They'll really appreciate that. Carlos clapped his shoulder. Family takes care of family, even the ones we didn't know we had. A warm silence settled over the porch. Everyone was deep in their thoughts for a moment. Then Mendoza cleared her throat. All right, emotional vulnerability time is over. We have work to do. Reg raised a hand. Do I really need to cover my trident tattoo? No, you don't, Mendoza said. No one on this island knows that U.S. Navy SEALs get it. Half the island has some kind of a trident or anchor or mermaid. Shannon waved her face paint-covered hands. Wait, no, I haven't tried the barbed wire tattoo yet. No barbed wire, Reg barked, grabbing his t-shirt. I'm infiltrating a prison, not starring in a midlife crisis rock band. Mendoza pointed at him. You're getting transferred on the midnight boat. Coast Guard is running the transport. Lucien has the paperwork. Alex, keep him from overthinking. Shannon, no more tattoos shaped like marine animals with cigarettes. Shannon, 1 cigar dolphin. 1. You're no fun. Carlos raised a finger. We still need to finalize the backstory. Reg, repeat after me. I was working the night ferry when a friend offered me easy money. Reg repeated it with military precision. Good. And you only smuggled 2 crates of whiskey. More is unbelievable. Reg nodded solemnly. 2 crates! Shannon squinted at him. You look like someone who would smuggle at least 4. Reg threw a chew toy at her. Lucien finally spoke again, voice steadier now. I finished your intake paperwork, he told Reggie. Your alias is Anthony Little Tony Pizzano. You're 48, worked small boats in the mainland ferry, no family listed. Reg nodded. Got it. But why am I suddenly Italian? Because they are still on their mob movie binge. Mendoza rolled her eyes. Lucian added, sniffing again. And be careful, please. Reg clapped his shoulder. Don't worry, buddy. This is a walk in the park for a guy like me. Alex rolled her eyes at him. Here goes the operator talk. Mendoza raised both hands. Everybody focus. We need Reg ready by midnight. Carlos, finish coaching him. Shannon, get your paints out of here. Alex, pack him a bag with no suspiciously expensive toiletries. And Lucien? She softened again. Go get a drink. Lucian nodded and walked to the kitchen. Carlos opened the duffel and dumped out a ratty hoodie, worn flip-flops, a beanie, a notebook filled with nonsense scribbles, a carton of imported cigarettes. Shannon clapped. It's perfect. You look like someone who definitely made poor decisions involving a fishing boat. Reg sighed. That's the goal. Mendoza checked her watch. You have 6 hours until the boat leaves. Get ready. She took out her phone. I need to check something. She dialed and waited for an answer. Senora Maribel, good evening. This is Detective Mendoza. She put the call on speaker. I have a question for you. Good evening, Detective. I hope I have the right answer. When do your temps return the costumes and get paid for the job? Usually the day after from 9 to 11 a.m., so the guy who worked the animal shelter today will return the suit tomorrow? Yes. He won't get paid otherwise. Thank you. I might call you later again if that is okay. Of course, Detective, call whenever you need. I'm usually up till late. Mendoza clicked the red button. Everyone looked at her. Angela, what are you thinking? Alex asked. I'm thinking that if Thomas's killer is stupid and greedy, and most criminals are, we might have a chance to arrest him while he's returning the suit. You seriously think someone is dumb enough to return the suit they took off the dead guy? Reg looked at her skeptically. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they are. Carlos crossed his arms and grinned. I'm with Angela on this one. Then we have some more planning to do, Mendoza said, trying to hide her excitement. Shannon, would you please go get Gary? Chapter 10. So what are you in for? The red-haired guy sitting on the left asked Reg. Contraband. Reg grunted, shifted on the hard metal bench, opened a pack of imported cigarettes, and offered one to the man next to him. Snuck 2 crates of whiskey onto the night ferry. You? The man took the cigarette without hesitation. Petty theft. Cleaned out half the bodegas on the mainland. Reg lit his cigarette with a scratched lighter and let out a coil of smoke. Man, I haven't been on San Malvino so long. I have no idea how I'm going to survive after they release me. Are you up for any kind of job? Sure. Whatever it takes to get back on my feet. Stick with me, the man said, taking the entire pack from Reg's hand and pocketing it without shame. I'll hook you up. Reg didn't protest. It was the cheapest intelligence he'd ever bought. Reg slouched deeper, letting the ex-military precision drain out of his posture and scratched his beard. So, how's Legoland? Never been there. The man took a long drag, exhaled through his nose. Crappy housing, crappy grub, same as everywhere, but release week's always interesting. Lots of opportunities for our kind. Reg pretended to look confused. How so? One of the other men, a thin guy with a shaved head, snorted. If you know the right people, you get jobs lined up before you're out. Easy stuff. Fast cash, another added. Christmas rush, said a fourth, shrugging. People get generous, you know, and we do need extra for rehabilitation. Everyone laughed. Reg nodded like someone trying to piece together a scheme without sounding too eager. The bodega thief leaned closer, lowering his voice. Sometimes, if you're real lucky, they give you one of the red envelopes. Reg raised a brow. What's in it? If you got more of those cigarettes. The man smirked, tapping ash on the ferry's metal grate. I'll make sure you get one. The ferry horn bellowed as lights from the Legoland dock came into view. The men stood, stretching, grumbling. Reg opened his duffel and passed another pack to his new friend. The redhead smiled an oily smile. Stick around in the morning lineup. When you get the red envelope, follow the instructions after release. It's worth the trouble. Trust me. Reg nodded. They disembarked under harsh floodlights, boots clanging on metal ramps, salty wind whipping at their faces. A bored guard in a too-small jacket waved them into the intake hallway. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. The processing routine was fast and sloppy. Confirm names, check IDs, new wristbands, basic medical, cursory pat-down, belongings in plastic bins, orientation speech mumbled by a half-asleep officer. Reg signed the paperwork as little Tony with practiced sloppiness. The group was herded into the pre-release dormitory, a big open room with bunk beds lined in neat rows, paint peeling along the corners. A faint smell of instant noodles and sweat filled the air. A bulletin board near the door held few flyers. Community support after release, volunteer opportunities at the San Malvino Library, vocational program, ask for Administrator Hernandez. Reggie clocked that name immediately. The bodega thief plopped onto a lower bunk and jerked his thumb at Reg. "Forget that stupid bulletin board, man. I got you." Reg nodded and plopped on a bunk next to him. Lights dimmed. Lucian looked like a man who deeply regretted ever applying to police academy. He sat stiffly at one of Maribel's tiny plastic cafe tables, stuffed into a full Santa suit 3 sizes too big. The fake belly was sliding to the left, the beard itched, and the hat kept drooping over one eye. Next to him, Shannon, dressed as an elf with glittery ears and a suspiciously cheerful bow tie, kicked her legs under the chair like she was fully committed to method acting. "We look legit," she whispered. Lucien muttered, "Can thieves sense fear?" "No," Shannon said brightly. "Dogs can sense fear. Thieves sense money. Totally different skill set." Maribel, wiping down her counter, gave them an apologetic smile that said, "Sorry you're suffering, but also this is hilarious." The cafe was nearly empty this early in the morning, except for 2 other Santas who looked like they'd been on a bender last night. Outside, Gary was stationed directly in front of the cafe entrance, pacing back and forth like a mall Santa's deranged manager. He waved glossy flyers he had apparently printed at home on low-ink mode. Polly perched proudly on his shoulder, wearing a tiny Santa hat with a bell still slightly too big for his head. Gary announced to the half-empty mall, "Photos with a festive parrot. Get your Christmas memories here." Polly echoed, "Picture! Picture! Picture!" His hat jingled violently with each squawk. From her vantage point near the giant mall Christmas tree, Mendoza pressed 2 fingers to her earpiece. "Gary," she said sharply, "stop blabbering into the mic. Your voice is echoing inside my skull." Gary froze. "Copy that, boss. But I just want to say this is a dream come true. A real sting operation. I knew someday you'd recognize my talents." Mendoza sighed audibly. "Right now, I recognize only your potential to blow our cover. Focus." Inside the cafe, Shannon snorted into her elbow. Lucien tugged at his beard and whispered into his earpiece, "Does anyone else feel ridiculous?" "Oh, come on. This is so much fun," Shannon whispered cheerfully. Lucian groaned. "I didn't join the police force for holiday-themed surveillance." Shannon smiled. "You're a Santa. I'm an elf. What could be better?" Before he could answer, the cafe door creaked open. A man with a real luscious white beard walked in. He wore sunglasses despite being indoors and carried a black garbage bag slung over his shoulder. He headed straight to the counter. Maribel straightened. "Good morning. How can I help you?" The man dropped the bag onto the counter. "Santa return. My buddy worked the shelter gig last night, asked me to bring the costume back and get the payment." Shannon elbowed Lucian so hard he almost toppled out of his chair. "Santa incoming," he whispered into his earpiece. Mendoza's voice crackled in everyone's ear. "Everyone stay put until the signal." Maribel cleared her throat, reached for the cash box, and raised her voice 1 notch above normal. "So, how many dogs were adopted yesterday?" That was the signal. The man blinked. I don't know." "Shame," Maribel said cheerfully. "It was a very good day." She handed him an envelope of cash. He tucked it into his pocket and turned toward the doors. Lucian straightened in his seat. "The Santa is out," he whispered into the mic. "Gary," Mendoza warned, "don't screw this." "On it," Gary whispered back, far too excited. The moment the man stepped out of the cafe, Gary swooped in. "Sir, good morning. Would you like to take a picture with the festive parrot? Only $5. Holiday special. Proceeds go to buying Polly new costumes." Polly puffed up and announced, "Costumes, seeds, donate." The man stared at them like he'd been ambushed by a crazy street performer. He tried to sidestep. Gary followed. "Very photogenic parrot, sir. Top-tier beak symmetry, once-in-a-lifetime offer." "Not interested," the man muttered, speeding up. "Parrot selfies are trending," Gary insisted. "Let's take a picture by the Christmas tree." "Take a picture, criminal," Polly screeched helpfully. The man jerked back like she'd thrown holy water at him. "What did it just call me?" Before he could finish that thought, Polly suddenly launched off Gary's shoulder, flapping directly above him, losing his Santa hat on the way. In a move that could only be described as stooping, he swooped down and neatly stole the man's sunglasses right off his face. "Hey!" he yelped. Polly flew straight toward the giant Christmas tree. "Polly!" Gary yelled. "Give those back!" The man bolted after the bird. Gary bolted after the man. Shoppers shrieked. Someone dropped a latte. A baby burst into tears. It was a beautiful scene of festive pandemonium. Polly fluttered dramatically around the Christmas tree and landed right on Mendoza's shoulder. When the man skidded to a stop in front of her, breathless and red-faced, Mendoza calmly drew her gun and leveled it at his chest. "Don't move," she said. "You're under arrest." The man froze, stunned. Gary arrived behind him, panting, hands on his knees. Polly preened on Mendoza's shoulder and chirped, "You're on my naughty list." Chapter 11. Rafael Dominguez, known on the streets as the White Beard, sat cuffed to the table at San Malvino police station's only interrogation room. Mendoza walked in without looking at him. She dropped a thin folder on the table hard enough for dust to leap. "Morning, Rafael." He blinked once, surprised but trying not to show it. "Yeah," he said slowly. "That's me." "Glad we agree on something," Mendoza replied. "Your little fake ID was cute. Very retro. Unfortunately for you, the science advanced in the last decade or so. Ever heard of face recognition?" Rafael shrugged, leaning back until his chair screeched. "Lady, you're saying a lot of things I don't care about." Mendoza ignored him. She pulled the metal chair opposite him, but chose not to sit. She hooked one arm over the backrest and stared at him with the patience of a parent waiting for a toddler to admit stealing cookies. "Let's try this again. Where did you get the Santa costume?" "Found it," Rafael said, giving her an innocent smile. "Dumpster behind the mall. Had the cafe's name on the tag. I figured I'd return it. Earn a few bucks. Good deed of the season, you know." "How did you know it came from the animal shelter?" "Had a flyer from the event in the pocket. I connected the dots." Mendoza said, unimpressed. "You know what else was at the shelter yesterday?" She waited half a beat. "A dead man." He cocked his head. "Nothing to do with me." "You were at the animal shelter event yesterday." "Nope." "You walked out with the money from the donation box." "Nope." "You tased a man wearing that suit?" "Lady." He grinned, spreading his cuffed hands as far as the chain allowed. "You got nothing on me?" Mendoza inhaled slowly through her nose. Rafael wasn't as stupid as she thought. She leaned closer. "Let me explain something. A man is dead. He was wearing the suit you returned. You just happened to find a full Santa outfit that was taken off the dead man in the trash? A recently released ex-con with a rap sheet longer than the public beach?" He didn't blink. "Coincidence." "Are you sure? Is that your final answer?" she asked flatly. "Yep." Mendoza straightened. "So you're sticking to the dumpster story?" "That's the truth." "And you expect me to believe that?" "Nope." He grinned again. "Expect you to leave me alone. You got nothing on me." Mendoza stared at him hard enough that Lucian, watching through the one-way glass, shivered. She finally pushed off the chair and headed for the door. Out in the hallway, she kept walking until she reached the nearest trash bin and threw the folder in it. "Boss?" Lucian said cautiously. She didn't look at him. "He's right. I've got nothing concrete. The only thing that ties him to Thomas is the damn taser, and he ditched it. The rest is circumstantial. Lucian grimaced. So, we're stuck. We're not stuck. Mendoza rubbed her forehead. We just need that taser. That's the murder weapon. Once we find it, I can pin him to Thomas and the donation theft. Lucian thought about this, frowning at the floor. He could have dropped it anywhere in the mall. Yep. Or thrown it out. Yep. Or given it to someone. Lucian. He blinked up at her. Yeah? Stop listing the ways we're doomed. He nodded meekly. Okay, so what do we do? She looked at him. Reg better find something on the inside, because unless we get that taser... She shook her head. Dominguez walks. Reg sat on his bunk in the pre-release dorm, going through the paperwork the guards handed him during the lineup. His alias, Tony Pizzano, was printed across every page of the packet. Pre-release checklist, reintegration guidelines, a form about housing options, another about food stipend pickup, regular release paperwork. But then there was the red envelope. It had been tucked between the standard forms. No guard announced it, no name on the front. Reg opened it on the bunk, careful not to draw attention. Inside was a single business card. Bolero Lanes Bowling Alley, Town Square Mall Level 2, Group Discounts, Events. On the back of the card was a note in a neat handwriting. Tuesday, 6:15 p.m. Ask for the manager. That was it. No signature, no directions, no context, no hint of who had decided Tony Pizzano should get this card. The kind of cryptic message that would have made him roll his eyes if he weren't actively undercover. A shadow fell across his bunk. What you got there, Tony? Reg looked up. It was his red-headed friend. He dropped onto the bunk beside Reg like they'd known each other for a decade. Reg tilted the card toward him just slightly. Came with the pre-release paperwork. The redhead grinned at him. I told you I got your back. Now give me another pack, partner. I know you got more. Reg took a pack out of his duffel and handed it. You know what this is? Yeah. The redhead scratched the back of his neck. That's where they tell you what your job is. In a bowling alley? Reg asked flatly. Yeah, man. Look, they don't exactly spell it out for us, but everybody knows the deal. You show up at the bowling alley at the time they say. Someone gives you instructions. Boom. You got work. No waiting around, no begging for shifts, no standing outside the docks praying someone calls in sick. Reg kept his face the same blank shade of unimpressed. What kind of work? Depends on your talents. Reg slid the card back into the envelope. The redhead nudged him. If you're smart, Tony, you go. Nobody skips a bowling alley assignment. That's where real money is at. Reg pocketed the envelope. Do you know who gives the jobs? The redhead barked a laugh. You kiddin'? Nah. There's a nice lady at the alley, but she's the middleman. You ask too many questions, she won't give you jobs no more. So no questions, Reg summarized. Exactly. The redhead slapped his knee. See? You'll do fine out there. Reg hummed noncommittally. Before he could ask anything else, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Every inmate in the dorm went quiet for half a second. A guard appeared at the door, eyes sweeping the room before landing on Reg. Tony Pizzano. Reg lifted his chin lazily. Yeah? The warden wants you. Chapter 12. When Detective Mendoza said she had someone in mind for this operation, the warden said, extending a hand, I didn't realize she meant a United States Navy colonel. Reg shook his hand and eased into the chair with the relaxed posture of a man who'd been in worse rooms on worse days. Retired colonel, he corrected. And it's fine. Honestly, I'm just glad I didn't have to use any of my special skills you people worry about. The warden huffed a laugh. So am I, Colonel. So am I. Reg reached into the pocket of his jumpsuit and slid the business card across the desk. The warden frowned at it. Bolero Lanes, he said. The bowling alley? Flip it, Reg said. The warden turned it over and instantly froze. Tuesday, 6:15 p.m. Ask for the manager. He leaned back slowly, letting out a long sigh. I've seen these, he muttered. I didn't think much of them. I thought, maybe they needed temps. Or maybe it was just local businesses taking an interest in rehabilitation. He scratched his jaw. One of my guards' wives works there. I figured she was offering people harmless gigs, keeping them off the streets. Reg nodded. Only, it's not harmless. So it seems. The warden closed his eyes for a beat, then reopened them with a new, resigned clarity. Detective Mendoza is going to want that card, and she'll know what to do with it. He pushed the card back to Reg. We have to process you out. That's what I figured. The warden stood and extended a hand. Retired Colonel, thank you. And God help me, I hope I never have to work with Detective Mendoza on an undercover operation again. Reg shook his hand. She grows on you, believe me. The warden gave a humorless chuckle. So does prison mold. Reg left the office. By the time he reached the dorm again, the guys were already watching him. The redhead, perched on the bunk, whistled. You alive, Tony? Warden didn't chew you out? Did worse, Reg deadpanned. He released me. The redhead blinked. What? Already? Overcrowding, Reg said with a shrug. Guess they need the bunk. You lucky son of a... Well, run before they change their mind. Reg gave the man a nod and kept moving. Processing out was quicker than anything else in the building. The guard at the desk slid a manila folder toward him. Tony Pizzano, the guard read aloud. Here's your stuff. Reg reached into the folder. There was a cashier's check for $50 and an ID card for Rodrigo Punto with his picture on it. As he turned to leave, the guard winked at him. The gate buzzed open with a hydraulic groan. Outside the chain-link fence stood Alex and Bombay. When I married you, I knew I was in for a ride, she said, hugging him. But I didn't expect to have to pick you up from prison, also known as Legoland. Reg laughed and kissed her cheek. And you thought we'll get bored on this island. Bombay nudged Reg's thigh with his head as if saying, You smell weird, Dad, but I'm glad you're back. Reg scratched behind his ear. I missed you too, buddy. Alex took his hand and walked toward the parking. Let's go. Angela's waiting. The police station conference room looked like it always did during a difficult case. Takeout containers everywhere, coffee cups in various stages of decomposition, and Lucian's various cables spreading across the table threatening to claim the room. Reg sat beside Alex with Bombay curled under the table like he, too, was part of the investigative team. Shannon slumped in a chair opposite them, still wearing elf costume from The Sting. Gary and Polly had been banned from the conference room for noise-related reasons, which Gary firmly insisted was species discrimination. Mendoza dropped into the seat at the head of the table and slapped the business card down like she was presenting the crown jewel. All right, she said. Let's go over this once again. Lucian pinned the card to the corkboard. The business card comes from the release packet, so someone inside the Legoland puts it there. According to Reggie's prison friend, the bowling alley is where the middleman hands out assignments. According to Warden Patino, there is a guard named Eduardo Hernandez, whose wife, Rosa Hernandez, works in Bolero Lanes. Reg leaned back, folding his arms. Still doesn't explain how all of this connects to Maribel and her weird cafe? Mendoza reached for her phone. Then let's ask her. Everyone quieted as she dialed. The call picked up on the second ring. Cafe Carousel. Maribel speaking. Oh, detective, is everything all right? Mendoza's voice softened just a fraction. Maribel, I just have one question. Do you know Rosa from the mall bowling alley? Rosa? Maribel repeated, startled. Of course. She started working at the Lanes around the same time I opened my cafe. We had lunch together almost every day that first year. We were both struggling. My cafe wasn't doing well. Well, you already know that. She gave a little embarrassed laugh. So Rosa told me I should rent out the costumes I'd already invested in anyway. Said she knew people who needed jobs and she'd spread the word that I offered character rentals. It was the only thing that kept me afloat. I owe her for that. Mendoza pressed her palm to her forehead. How long ago was that? Oh, 11 years. I tried to keep the cafe running for a year before giving up on the original theme. 11 years, Mendoza repeated. Yes, detective. Thank you, Maribel. That helps. Did I do something wrong? Maribel asked nervously. No, Mendoza said. You've done everything right. She ended the call and slowly lowered the phone to the table. The room stayed quiet. No one had to say it. They were all thinking the same thing. Reg drew in a low whistle. So this ring has been running almost 12 years. Lucian paled a little. 12 years of ex-cons getting assignments, 12 Christmas seasons of costumed robberies, 12 years of stolen charity money, probably. Shannon blinked at the business card, and Maribel had no idea. None, Mendoza said. She was just trying to keep her business afloat. Alex let out a slow exhale. Okay, so what now? We end it, Mendoza said, pushing her chair back. All of it. All at once. Lucian sat up straighter. You're planning a sweep. I'm planning a storm, Mendoza corrected. Lucian, text your Avengers group from the cruise ship takedown, or whatever you call yourselves. Get as many people with a badge as you can. I need every available officer, Port Authority, Coast Guard, firemen. We're going to need a lot of manpower. Lucian nodded, already typing. On it. Reg raised a brow. Please tell me you're not actually planning to arrest every Santa and elf on the island at the same time. Yes, Mendoza said. I am. Reg stared at her. Angela, you do realize you're about to become the most hated cop in the history of San Malvino? Mendoza rolled her eyes. I'm fine with making history this way. You're a weird mix of Grinch and Robin Hood. Shannon giggled. I don't steal from the rich. Mendoza rolled her eyes on her. Well, you want to give back to the poor. You know, she's not wrong, Reg said. I have zero time for your nonsense, Mendoza said, dialing on her phone. Warden? She said. It's Mendoza. Everyone could hear the muffled grumble of the man on the other end. I need you to be ready to take your guard Hernandez into custody tomorrow, she said. Timing is crucial. I'll let you know. The warden spoke again, resigned but steady. Thank you, she said. I'll be in touch. She hung up and dropped back into her chair and looked straight at Reg. So, she said, are you ready to go undercover once more? As far as I know, me and Bombay have nothing else planned for tomorrow. Chapter 13. Reg paused just outside the entrance of Bolero Lanes at exactly 6:15 in the evening on Tuesday night. Neon stripes buzzed faintly overhead. A cardboard cutout of a smiling bowling pin winced under a string of cheap tinsel. He leaned down and patted Bombay's head. You know what to do, buddy. Bombay gave a single woof, the undercover K9 equivalent of copy that. Reg pushed open the glass door and stepped inside and walked straight to the counter, where a teenager wearing the red Bolero polo was staring at his phone. Manager here? Reg asked. The teen looked up, unimpressed. Yeah, 1 second. He wandered off with the urgency of a melting popsicle. Moments later, Rosa Hernandez emerged from behind the rental counter. Reg held up the business card. Her eyes flicked to it once, just long enough to register the handwriting, before she gestured him toward the far-right bowling table, the one with the flickering lamp overhead, and a laminated sign that read, Extreme Bowlers Only. She motioned him to sit down. San Malvino General, she said quietly. 3 days from today. They have a nativity play and a donation rally for the pediatric wing. They always get a crowd. Donation box will be right at the entrance. Pretty easy to snatch. Reg nodded slightly, letting her talk. We split 50-50, she continued. After the job, bring the money here and ask for size 14. She jerked a thumb toward the shoe wall. There's only one pair. Leave your shoes with the money inside and go bowl for an hour. Reg nodded again, every inch the man taking instructions. Rosa's voice lowered. Now go ask for size 15. The left shoe has a taser tucked inside, just in case someone gets clever. Her gaze sharpened. Return the taser same way. No mistakes. Reg tapped the business card against the table. Clear. Good. Rosa stood. We're done. Reg didn't move. Before I go, he said, scratching his chin casually, mind if I bowl a game? I've got a buddy waiting outside. Rosa shrugged. Sure. Even better. Look natural. Reg turned his head toward the door and called out, Buddy, come play! A second later, Bombay launched through the door like a missile. Pure chaos unfurled. Bombay barreled across the polished floor with the unstoppable momentum of a small freight train. People jumped. Bowling balls rolled sideways. Someone screamed. Bombay didn't care about any of them. He leaped, twisting midair, and slammed Rosa against the floor. 10 seconds later, the doors of Bolero Lanes burst open again. This time it was Mendoza flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Rosa Hernandez, she said to the woman still sprawled on the floor, you're under arrest for aggravated grand larceny, racketeering, accessory to manslaughter. Bombay waited for her to finish her sentence and only then took a step back. Reg patted him and turned to Mendoza. Check the size 15. There's a taser in one of the shoes. I'm willing to bet money it's the one used on Thomas. Mendoza gestured to the nearest uniform. Go. The officer sprinted to the wall of rental shoes. A minute later he yelled, Got it, boss! Mendoza looked at Reg. Nice work. Then patted Bombay's head. You too, buddy. Guess I owe you some steaks. 2 minutes later, her radio crackled. Detective, we've got 6 suspects in custody at the mall entrance. Another voice overlapped. The Plaza Santa is in custody. Someone else called. We're detaining 2 Santas and 3 elves at the Christmas market. A final burst of static announced, the Nativity Place Santa on Calle Verde is resisting, but he's small, so we're carrying him. Reg blinked. Mendoza looked almost proud. Operation Good Grinch is underway. Reg laughed. Just don't tell Shannon you took it to heart. Detective Mendoza really smiled for a first time in a while. I don't have a heart. I'm the most hated cop, remember? Later that night, Mendoza walked into the only interrogation room at her station, where Rosa and Eduardo Hernandez were securely cuffed to the table. You two, she said without preamble, are in deep trouble. Rosa swallowed. Eduardo snorted. Mendoza sat down and pushed a folder in front of them. We have everything we need. The taser, the money stashed in the service room of Bolero Lanes. Half of your pet ex-cons already threw you under the bus. Eduardo huffed. You don't understand how much work— Don't! Mendoza snapped, cutting him off. Do not finish that sentence unless you want me to add obstruction and contempt just for fun. Eduardo leaned back. I worked 20 years in this hellhole of a department, he muttered. You know what I made? Maybe enough to pay bills if we didn't eat. Mendoza stared at him. He kept going. You know what guards get, detective, he said, pointing a cuffed hand at her. You know exactly. Nobody gives a damn about us. We keep the island safe. We babysit criminals daily, and for what? For salaries that wouldn't keep a tourist fed a week. I deserved better. I deserved— He searched for the word. A medal, frankly. Mendoza raised her brows. A medal? Are you serious? Rosa chimed in quickly, leaning forward. We didn't just take money. We helped people. Men who nobody cared about. Men who were out of luck, with no job, no hope. We gave them work. We gave them chances. Mendoza stepped around the chair slowly, like she needed to move to keep herself from throwing it. Work, she repeated softly. You call stealing from children's hospitals and charity markets work? Rosa flinched, but didn't back down. People who can afford to donate are wealthy. They will donate again, and we helped people who had nothing. Eduardo nodded vigorously. Exactly. We redistributed. People with money give it away anyway, so who cares where it goes? Mendoza stopped moving. For a moment, the room went silent. Then her voice dropped to a tone so cold even Rosa recoiled. Do you two understand, she said, each syllable sharp, that those donations go to people who need them? Children, families in crisis, disaster victims, free clinics, elderly residents, the shelters, the soup kitchens, real people in real need. Eduardo opened his mouth. No, Mendoza snapped. You do not get to speak. Rosa tried anyway. We helped people in need too. You helped yourselves. Mendoza said. Don't dress it up as charity. Don't pretend it was noble. Don't hide behind the word ex-con like it's some sacred demographic. You built a criminal ring. You used vulnerable people. You stole from the island for more than a decade. Both Hernandezes stared at her. And the ex-cons you think you helped? They needed rehabilitation, Mendoza said, not recruitment. Same thing, Eduardo muttered. That did it. Mendoza slammed her hand onto the table so hard both of them jumped. No, she said, not even close. Rehabilitation lifts people up. Recruitment drags them down. You didn't save anyone. You trapped them. She straightened, breathing hard but controlled. And now, she said, you're going away for a long time. Eduardo scoffed. Don't threaten us with San Malvino Correctional. Every guard respects Eduardo Hernandez in Legoland. Mendoza leaned down until her face was inches from his. Oh, you're not going to Legoland, she whispered. You think I'd let you go back to the prison you manipulated for 11 years? You're going to the mainland today, she said, and you'll wait for your trial there. Eduardo glared. You have no right. I have every right, Mendoza said, and I'm done listening to your justifications. She opened the door. 2 uniformed officers stepped inside. Get them out of my sight. Chapter 14. The next afternoon, everyone gathered at the animal shelter. Elliot and his wife with their 4 kids, who were vibrating at a frequency known only to excited children. Alex and Reg, Shannon and Lucian, and even Mendoza showed up to deliver the good news in person. Ah, there they are. Miguel waved them over. The whole crew. Elliot turned around just in time for his youngest to run full speed into his leg. Dad, when do the doggies come back? You said soon. Soon is taking forever. Soonish, Elliot corrected gently. There's an ish. It's an important distinction. The 8-year-old flapped her arms like she was about to take flight. Can we get 2? She asked, eyes wide and hopeful. No, Elliot and his wife said in perfect unison, without even looking at each other. Alex stifled a laugh. I love parenting symphonies. Bombay sniffed each of the kids methodically, sat down, and accepted the pats he fully deserved. Dog walkers will be back any minute, Miguel said. We had a big group today. Everyone wanted to take the pups out for a Christmas stroll. They'll come through that door as soon as they're ready. While the kids pressed their faces to the glass like goldfish in a tank, Mendoza stepped in front of their small crowd. All right, everybody, she said, smiling. Quick update before the dog stampede hits. Miguel straightened. The room quieted a bit. Mendoza took a breath. We recovered most of the stolen money. Miguel's eyes widened. Most? As in, how much? Enough, she said. It'll take some time, paperwork, asset forfeiture, bureaucratic nightmares, but eventually everything we seized will be divided and returned to everyone who was robbed. She paused, softer. Including you. Miguel blinked hard. Detective, we usually buy 3 months of pet food with the Christmas donations. That's huge for us. And while the money is being processed, Mendoza added, everyone will pitch in. The town council, the volunteer groups, the Coast Guard, the fire station. She gave a small shrug. Even Lucian promised to help unload bags, which he will undoubtedly complain about for the foreseeable future. Lucien took a tissue out of his pocket. I complain with love. Miguel laughed, covering his face with both hands, overwhelmed. Thank you, he said. This place really needs it. Mendoza nodded once, almost awkwardly accepting gratitude. We know. A sudden clatter echoed from the hallway. The dog walkers were returning. The first volunteer came through the door with 3 leashes tangled between her ankles. Behind her came another cluster of dogs, big ones, small ones, yappers, sniffers, a mutt that looked like someone had accidentally built him out of spare dog parts. Then it happened. A blur of color burst from the group, a medium-sized mutt with wild, marbled fur in patches of caramel, gray and white. His collar slipped free, and he made a joyful, unhinged beeline across the room straight toward Elliot. What? Hey! Elliot braced himself as the dog leaped into his arms at full speed and started licking his face. The kid squealed. Elliot's wife couldn't stop laughing. "Well," Reg said, nudging Elliot, "I guess he chose you." Elliot blinked in disbelief. I didn't even do anything." "Exactly," Reg said. "The best ones know for themselves who their family is." Elliot's wife wiped a tear, laughing. "He's perfect." The oldest child tugged on Elliot's sleeve. "Dad, Dad, Dad, Dad. Can we call him Santa?" The other children instantly exploded into chanting, "Santa, Santa, Santa." The mutt barked once, as if casting his vote. "Oh yeah," Shannon said, grinning. "He's absolutely a Santa." Miguel stepped around the counter with adoption paperwork. "If he chose you, he's yours. That's how it works here." Elliot shook his head in disbelief, petting the dog curled up in his arms like he had been waiting for this moment his whole life. "I can't believe this." Lucian sniffed loudly, eyes shiny. "If this," he said, dabbing his eyes with a tissue, "is not a Christmas miracle, I don't know what is." Everyone turned to look at him. He cleared his throat. "I'm emotional. Leave me alone." "Maybe we need to get a brother or a sister for Loco?" Shannon asked, putting a hand over his shoulder. Lucian looked at her, then promptly hid the tissue in his back pocket. "I'm not emotional anymore. Let's go home." This has been Death by Santa Paws, a hilarious, feel-good, cozy mystery, Book 18 in the Island Whodunit series, written by Tess Marlowe.
Thank you for listening to Death by Santa Paws. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next mystery. See you on San Malvino.